Mhm. All right. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Comics for All. Thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. My name is Jameson. I'm your host here at Comics for All. I'm a comics librarian, and Comics for All is where comics, creativity, and community all connect. Happy Free Comic Book Day for those who are celebrating and participating today. We have an interview series called Ink and Insight, where we get to interview people involved with comics from all over the place. And today we have the wonderful Wells Thompson joining us. Wells, I'm sure you actually are feeling nice. You can actually relax for a minute after your free comic book day experience.
Yeah, I was slinging books all day long, so it feels nice to be back home. Yeah, my wife cooked up some field peas, and we had a nice meal before I settled into this. But yeah, uh, yeah. If my voice sounds a little raspy, it's because I've been talking all day.
that's that's a good problem to have. Like you said, you were slinging books. So as a librarian, I like to ask a couple reader-centric questions. But what hooked you specifically as a reader? What comics got you as a reader?
Oh god, I think oddly, and this is just a terrible place to start, but I think it was Watchmen was like the first comic that really
Ooh,
hooked me
interesting.
and got me into it. Which is like that's that comic works so much better when you know the history of like what it's pulling from and
Mm-hmm.
kind of what it's referencing. But even without that context, it was just evident that this was such a incredibly like deep work or that like to this day I read and there are pieces of art that you read and you feel like inspired by. I think Watchmen is one that I read and go, oh man, how do I even compete? Even bother? It's just that good.
It's in another
But
realm.
that Scott Pilgrim was a huge one for me.
Yes.
Ooh. Oh no. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. My headphones decided to rebel for a second. Anyway,
No worries.
um, Scott Pilgrim was huge for me. Seeing that in theater, my eyes just like went to this. I had a date. Like I brought my girlfriend at the time, and I could not have been ignoring her more in that theater. Like in that empty theater with Scott Pilgrim, I was just like on the edge of my seat, like yes. And then read the whole series in like a week, or if that, probably just a couple days. Um, but yeah, it's always been sort of on the I guess like Watchmen isn't super independent, but on the like less comic booky DC Marvel side of things and more on the independent side of things is
Totally.
where it's what's always like brought me into comics.
Excellent. Love hearing that. Well, the natural follow up to that is, when did you have the realization for yourself that you wanted to create and make the comics versus just reading them?
I kind of got dragged in kicking and screaming, to be honest. I
Love, I want to hear more now.
so my good friend and writing partner for many of my books, Dalton Shannon, his dream, like since he was a kid, was like I'm gonna write comics, and I was just like I want to write, I want to write books. Um, and we met in writing classes and digital filmmaking classes, and he wound up writing something that I acted in, and I wound up writing some stuff for like our mutual friends for them to shoot. And we just like got to know each other and got accustomed to each other's style. And he kind of brought me into like, I'm going to make comic books. If you want to like, hang out with me and learn the ropes, that would be cool. Uh, and I sort of did it as a writing exercise, and then I fell in love with the process and the collaboration of it, getting to
Hmm.
write something on the page and then have someone else like bring their ideas to it as they make it a reality. Like that's always been the most exciting part for me is getting that collaborative element to it.
Absolutely. I feel like that really gets a lot of people pulled in. So another reader-centric question: what is something that you've read recently-ish that has stood out to you, comics or otherwise?
Ooh, let's see. Let's see. Elisa Rumbo, not Elisa Rumboli. Yolanda. What's her name? Yolanda. Zen Fardino wrote this book, No Saints Nor Poets,
Ooh.
that I've really been enjoying. It's a swashbuckling BL series that like just kind of hits all the right notes for me. It's just high adventure and fun, and it's joy distilled in comic book form. I love it. Let's see. I read what did I read recently? I'm sorry. Again, long day, so my mind is a little bit blank. I read it's maybe been a minute. I wouldn't say this is like super recently, but Manhattan Beach from Jennifer Egan, who's one of my favorite writers, just period across the board, is just a really beautifully written, like incisive piece of like historical fiction that I really love. Looks at like Manhattan during the World War II and kind of the period where like women were brought into the workforce but like resented for it, and how the mob was still kind of running New York in the underground. And it's just done in it's like three different characters kind of have these intersecting narratives that just super pulls you in. And then recently I this is a comic I read a long time ago. In fact, I think it's still maybe like numbers wise one of my most read things on the internet is my review from Comic Book Yeti of Money Shot. But I met I run into Tim Seeley fairly regularly on the con circuit, and he gave me a copy of the first two volumes, and so I've been rereading that, and I'm like, yeah, this is an excellent book.
Tim Seeley's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Really easygoing and great writer, and yeah, happy to have been acquainted with him for now a couple of years. I met him at Free Comic Book Day actually 2 years ago.
Okay.
I signed up for Free Comic Book Day at Dark Tower Comics, and like extremely last minute they were like, oh yeah, Tim Seeley is going to be sitting next to you. I was like, oh cool. All right.
Well, I met him at American Library Association had their national conference in San Diego, and he was there with Tony Fleece, the author of like Stray Dogs and things like that. And I didn't even know it was Tim Seeley at first, because I was just like hanging out with Tony, and there's this other guy, and I'm like, I was just talking with him as part of the conversation. Someone's like, "That's Tim Seeley." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm so face blind with a lot of people. I didn't even recognize him. I'm like, what in the world?
And he's really down to earth. He's not.
He was.
He's not like gonna try and get in your face about the fact that he's like doing pretty well as a comic book writer. You would never know if you didn't like bring it up yourself.
You're right. That's actually a great point. Well, if you can give us some insight into your kind of what your creative work week looks like here for the next month or two, with the Kickstarter here coming to an end pretty soon. What else are you kind of working on behind the scenes?
Oh, I'm going to be staving off a heart attack for a little while. That'll be fun. Just nature of Kickstarter. No, I've got the next 2 or 3 that I'm like slowly building behind the scenes and working on. Right now with Mauricio Mora, I'm working on a series that's a spinoff of our book, or of my book, Frankenstein the Unconquered, which came out through SourcePoint Press a little while ago. We're doing
shout out SourcePoint.
Yeah, we're doing a Bride of Frankenstein Cold War spy thriller called Bride that I'm really excited about. That'll be the next like number 1 that I put out probably. And then I've got a couple of things in the background working with Chloe Brailsford on a comic that she wanted to collaborate on.
Very cool.
Love Chloe. Was so excited to get that call of just like, hey, you want to work on something? I'm like, yes.
Yes, I would.
Lately, just, state of the world being what it is, chaotic and awful. It's like being forced to make business decisions and creative decisions at the same time has been like kind of paralyzing. So any excuse that I have to not work on something that's like mine, I'm like, please, let's do anything else.
Love hearing that. Well, if you can share with us, since you're really into the in the comics industry, what is exciting to you about comics in 2026?
I I mean, I'll be honest. The comics in general, like indie comics, is in a state that I'm worried about more than excited about. But what I am excited
And that's
about
fair
is
though.
like, yeah, just because when people don't have money to spend, like the little guy is the first one to get cut off. You know, the people who
Correct.
are trying to scrap it and bootstrap it and get their vision out there are like the first ones that are going to run into like no one has money for your project. So that's what I'm worried about. But what I'm excited about is that generally like brings out some really like scrappy, inventive, like off the wall stuff that you wouldn't normally see. I think indie comics on the whole are getting like more interesting, just
Agreed.
narrative wise. Just
The spectrum of stories is wider.
yeah, exactly. People are getting bolder because I think there's a zeitgeist of like, well, there's no smart business decision I can make with like whatever genre I put into, so let's just do the craziest thing we can think of, and
Hmm.
that's how you get to pull an example that is not an indie comic, but like Chainsaw Man. Like that's how you get something insane
You're right.
in a positive way.
Well, kind of diving into your background a little bit further, if you can, what's a mistake or a lesson you've learned along the way that you're kind of grateful for at this point?
Oh geez, too many to count. Uh, if I had to hone in on one, I'd say I went like entirely too big, entirely too early. Where like my second convention I ever went to, back when I had four zines, four 8-page zines to sell at a convention. My second one ever was to drive 8 hours south into New Orleans and go to the what turned out to be like the very last Wizard World convention,
Oh, wow.
which is the equivalent of like Fan Expo now.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a monstrous loss in terms of like raw numbers and money, because of course it was like, it was never, that was never going to work out.
Yeah.
But going down there, I met an editor who wound up introducing me to some artists, and like that kind of snowballed a bunch of things that happened in my career. So on the one hand, like it, I almost wish I had been a little bit less reckless with just like, no, we're going to any event that we can go, that we can get into. We're gonna, dive head first. If C2E2 had let me in with, four zines, I would have gone and I would have embarrassed myself. Uh, but at the same time, like that attitude led me to getting on Kickstarter and building an
Yes.
audience that way. And so like I'm grateful that I had that kind of reckless abandon. And I think that you need that if you're going to stand out in the market, especially today.
That's right. And like you said, you to kind of sustain yourself within the market, you need to stand out in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you can, and kind of just talking about the act of creating like a single page within a comic book, do you feel like your approach has changed from your early projects to now, or is the process kind of pretty similar?
I mean, I've definitely gotten better than when I first started. Because when I first started, I was trying to write them the same way that I write like movie scripts, and
Ah,
that
gotcha.
just doesn't work for a number of reasons.
Nope.
But but I've definitely like I've learned a lot over the years, and I've gotten a lot better at I've gotten a lot better at figuring out when less is more, and when to
Yep.
say the art can speak for itself here, and the artist can probably figure out like a more compelling way to lay this out than I can, and I'll just like so I have a lot more panels that are like single sentence, two sentence, and then like top of the page might be a note of like, hey, if you have an idea for a cool layout or design, hit me up. I would love to hear it.
Right.
I've gotten more comfortable putting power into the artist's hands for sure. I still like to be meticulous in my scripting and like make sure it's all there. But in terms of like insisting, like, no, if you have an idea, tell me.
Right.
And that's produced some really, really cool results.
Love to hear that.
Yeah,
If you can for a minute here, touch on your influences and inspirations outside of comics, music, movies, literature, whatever it may be.
for sure. Well, I've always been really heavily like literature inspired, because that was kind of the world that I came from, and movies especially. Um, like I said, I've been working on a Frankenstein book for a little while, and like one of the things that got me going to be like, God, I got to get back to that story. I got to keep like writing that. Was watching Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
I have yet to watch it in its entirety. I've seen chunks with my wife here and there, but I have yet to like sit down and watch all of it.
I loved it so much. I mean, like I have like differences of opinion in certain things, and of course there are some like Del Toroisms where you're like, well,
Right.
that could have been handled more subtly, maybe. But at the end of the day, I'm not mad about it. But it was a really incredible experience, and it was remarkable in the sense of like, if you just watched this movie and then started to read my book, Frankenstein the Unconquered, you could convince yourself that just like, oh yeah, that's what happened, and then this is the sequel to that. Like it happened, even though I've been writing mine forever, like for 5-6 years before that movie came out.
Right.
Like the fact that lined up, I think is just a testament to the strength of like the core of the character, that can work out that well.
Absolutely.
Literature wise, like I said, Jennifer Egan, huge influence on my writing style. Kurt Vonnegut, I grew up absolutely loving his stuff in high school. A little bit of like John Steinbeck. I'm a American like contemporary. I don't want to say snob, but enjoyer. So I love J.D. Salinger. I love Hemingway. I love
There you go.
Gatsby and Faulkner and I have our issues, but we there's a respect there.
Yeah. Well, that era of storytelling, I feel like is real like introspective, and it's kind of underrated.
For sure. Yeah, super introspective, super character driven, and that's sort of what I like to take from it. And just like watching how openly people were struggling with like the way the world is changing. It's like, yeah, that feels relevant to now. Music wise, yeah, I'm always listening to music when I write. So oftentimes music inspires the work, or the work will dictate what music I'm listening to, which will then come back and inspire the work. So like for Smut, I was listening to a lot of Charlie XCX. I was listening to a lot of I mean, I made a lot of like playlists for Smut that wound up being like backer goals, like stretch goals and stuff, that I could feed in. It's like, hey, here's the music that I was listening to while I was making this.
I've actually recommended that to a couple of creators, and I think a few of them are actually going to try it.
It's a really engaging way of like bringing people in on a different level.
Yes.
And it's just nice to like put that energy somewhere. I'll say with oh god, there's like I'll listen to a lot of heavy metal and stuff with Frankenstein the Unconquered, just something to System of a Down or
there we go.
Yeah, something to just get me going as I'm writing these scenes that are just rip roaring and ridiculous and over the top. And for although more and more it's been like ambient stuff and like lo-fi beats for witches only. Has been a great one has been a great one to just listen to. But no, I love story. There's a graphic novel that I have in my head that I would love to like finally get down and write when I have the time, that is inspired almost single-handedly by like 2 or 3 albums that I listened to in high school that are still like from a band that disbanded in like 2009 or something like that.
Wow.
That I just love and I'm obsessed with, and I'm like, this has a frenetic energy that I just need to put onto the page. And I've been thinking more and more about that, and I think the time is coming that I reintroduce people to the Schoolyard Heroes.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, we're not talking about that right now, but we're going to be talking about Love is Simple, which is your current Kickstarter right now, which you were very close to reaching the goal within $400. So we're hoping we can get some people from this and people who check it out on YouTube after the fact. But Wells, if you can, kind of what is the pitch for Love is Simple here, and long form, short form, whatever you're comfortable with?
Sure thing. Yeah. Love is Simple is a retelling of Greek mythology that frames the aftermath of the Trojan War as Aphrodite realizing that she maybe made a bit of an oopsie, maybe went a little too far with that contest, shouldn't have kidnapped Helen of Troy, and has something of an existential crisis trying to figure out what her place in the world as the god of love is if she can bring this much destruction. And in doing so, kind of makes it everyone else's problem. She's a little bit full of herself. She's a little bit airheaded. So in the original title, which wound up becoming like the subtitle for issue 1, is like the nearly insurmountable torture of admitting you made a mistake. And that is Aphrodite to achieve. But it incorporates a lot of different kind of myths and characters and figures from Greek mythology.
Yes.
Probably most notably Hades and Persephone, but also Callisto and Artemis, Zeus and Hera, and Zeus and everyone else being a problem, and Demeter, and you get a lot of the chthonic pantheon in there. It's a trip. It sort of recontextualizes a lot of the stories as like, here's kind of how they went down, and the reason why they is because it was a lot of different gods deciding, okay, here's how we're going to tell it so that we don't look terrible.
Right. Love that. Well, kind of diving a little bit further, where did the core idea for it come from? Was it a character first, more world, kind of a backstory, a what if moment? Kind of where did it start?
It was definitely a what if moment. It was just kind of I don't know exactly. I can tell you when it happened. I don't know exactly what like the thought was, because it was at Emerald City Comic Con, like not this past Emerald City, but last Emerald City. I went with a couple of buddies of mine who are also comic creators, and I talked to them about like, wouldn't it be interesting if like Aphrodite had to come to terms with like what it meant to be the god of love? Like after, like, what would that look like? I think originally in my head it was going to be a lot more dramatic, and like it was, you know, maybe Aphrodite had like came back as like an older, more wizened woman, and like we had a meditation on what that was, which is maybe closer to my actual wheelhouse of like more introspective stuff. But then I was talking to, we were winding down Smut, which was our still by far our most popular book. And I was talking to the artist, and I was like, okay, well, first of all, do you want to work with me anymore?
Yeah.
And the answer was yeah, which is like always, I believe in like open communication. I don't just want to like assume that people are on, you know, any kind of wavelength. But she was like, yeah, I would love to. And we talked about possible things to do. And I was like, I kind of have this idea for Greek mythology. And Bianca was like, I love Greek mythology. I'm in. I don't care what it is. I'm in. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we can, yeah, if I tool it more toward what Smut was doing, which is in this like comedic slice of life kind of like space, I think there's definitely room for that there. And then I started, you know, writing it and toying with it. And the more I messed with it, the more I realized like how much was there and how much fun it was going to be to make, and how ripe the story was and how great the characters were. And yeah, it was definitely one of those scripts that just comes out of you. I think total writing time was like 3 weeks, maybe with edits, with revisions, which is for scale, like nothing basically.
Yeah.
If I can get through a script like a book in a week and a half or 2 weeks or even a month, like I'm so happy. I've definitely had scripts. There's one that I've been working on for a while that's like took me, you know, 2.5 drafts to be like, oh wait, oh that's what the book is about. Okay, now we can get started on it. So
well, if you can dive a little bit further into the tone balance, kind of, are we talking kind of dark, funny, chaotic, all of the above? Kind of where does that sit?
I mean, there's definitely a bit of a chaotic element to it, but it's a very, you know, character driven sort of, you know, the humor comes from just how the characters' egos and personalities bounces off of their very real problems. And how it's like, well, there could be an obvious solution for this, but we are way too blind and full of ourselves to see it. whether it's like Persephone and Hades clearly being obnoxiously into each other, but neither being willing to admit it,
Right.
or Aphrodite, being like, well, you could just, admit that you made a mistake and try and adjust. Well, that can't be it. There has to be something like deeper. There has to be something that I can change about the nature of love itself that makes my actions okay. It's like, all right. So it's very much a comedy of like these big egos and personalities and trying to justify what is ultimately not that hard to
Yeah.
fix.
Well, that goes right into my next question, which is, especially being the writer on it, how do you balance the humor side with the emotional or thematic depth in the story?
I mean, I think I think you don't ever like sacrifice a a dramatic beat or a character moment for a joke, but I think
Hmm.
they do live kind of hand in hand. Like the humor comes from the characters because they're so big and ridiculous, but
Right.
also like in that you get to know them a little bit better so that when it's time for like a big emotional beat, you understand where it's coming from, and you don't need it to be like humorous in and of itself.
That's right.
um yeah, there's a moment I'm thinking of in particular, and I think it's issue 4, where we just like hear Aphrodite kind of say out loud what's like been bothering her and what's on her mind. And it's like almost tragic. Like you really start to feel for her. And then in the next moment, someone says something completely deadpan seriously that is, because of who they are, just hilarious and still deeply insightful for what their character is, and still like driving the plot and very true, but also completely breaks you like as a reader.
Oh man,
Just
love that. Well, if you can here for a minute, I'll put the Kickstarter URL in the chat for everybody out there. If you can, talk about the different rewards and tiers that are available for people who haven't backed it yet.
For sure. We try and accommodate everyone, whether you're an international backer, a standard backer, or someone who just wants like, or a collector and wants to get everything. So we've got digital available, which that comes with every physical copy as well. But as a baseline, we have digital. We've got 3 different covers for you to choose from. One from the interior artist Bianca Milanez, the B cover from Skylar Patridge, who is incredible, one of the best artists in the game right now. And
Hmm.
then the third one from Tua Lote, who doesn't need an introduction.
Nope, not at all.
Truly a stunning artist, and someone that I cannot believe we managed to get on this project. We've got tiers for all of that. We also have a hollow foil cover for like a really nice looking like step up from the rest. We've got a collector's tier that collects all of them at a small discount. We've got tiers that bring in some like goodies, enamel pin stickers, things like that, as well as big, large encompassing ones that bring in all of the potential add-ons, so that you can get every cover, you can get the swag that comes with it, all at a discount. And then our ultimate tier is the Adopt-a-Page tier, which is something unique that we do, where you can look at the book before anyone else does, select your favorite page. You get your name on the page. You get a poster printout of that page that's one of a kind that we mail to you so that you can hang it up on your wall. And it's
Very
very
cool.
much like you adopted the page, like you helped create this page to bring it to life. We wanted to give people the opportunity to be invested in the book and to own a piece of original art.
Yes.
And since most of the artists that I work with work digitally, it's not as easy as just like, hey, we're selling you a page like that's drawn. So this was kind of our compromise to that, is like, we, as much as we would love to do like, here's an inked page that you could buy from an artist at a convention, instead of that, it's like, here's your name on that page, here's special recognition for you, as well as all the swag that comes with the rest of the tiers. So yeah, that is the ultimate. I think we have 2 or 3 people who have picked that up so far.
Excellent.
Yeah, so the more the merrier, please. If as long as we have pages to adopt out, you are welcome to adopt a page.
Love hearing that. That's a great idea. If you can, you mentioned a minute ago that you've done playlists for other projects. For this particular project, Love is Simple, is there a playlist potentially or a soundtrack or anything in that realm?
Could well be. We did it for Smut. I would not put it past us to do it again. Or like, ignore the opportunity to do it again. But we'll have to hit our goal first. I don't put the cart in front of the horse. I don't
Yep.
put stretch goals in front of the actual book. So when we get there, we'll get there. But until we hit that goal, it's not something we're out discussing.
Absolutely. Well, if you can for a minute here, touch them on. You mentioned that you're working on issue 4. How far do you have the story kind of mapped out?
I have all 5 issues written
Excellent.
and edited. I have I'm good friends with the series editor, Krista Herader. They are a really fantastic and very good at keeping me on task and thumping me on the ear when necessary. But yeah, no, I like to have my scripts pretty much done. I like to be able to respond if it's clear, like in the drawing, that something is changing or something is working differently or something works that I didn't expect it to. I like to
Right.
have the flexibility to go back and fix it, but for the most part, I like to know what the overall shape of the story is before I really start going into the book. I've done it the other way before, and it works. It's fine, but I prefer it this way right now.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kind of diving a little bit into your creative process. When you're writing humor, do you kind of aim for more shock, relatability, or more kind of character-driven comedy?
Yeah, I don't love shock comedy because I find it winds up being a
And it's
little
hard to
bit
do. I feel
cruel. Yeah,
like you
and it's
said.
especially if you don't have like the audio element, if you don't have movement, if it's just static images on a page, it's a lot harder to pull off. In the same way that like a jump scare is like basically impossible to pull off in a horror comic.
Hmm.
Trying to do shock comedy in a it can work, and like Tim Seeley, we talked about earlier.
Yes.
He's fantastic at it. But my wheelhouse is more of the character driven stuff. The humor mostly comes from the characters and their actions and their big personalities. Um, I don't ever try and force a joke if it doesn't work with who the character is and what they're doing and what would feel realistic for them to do. Not that you can't have absurd moments, just that like it
Yeah.
needs to. It doesn't. I don't like it when like those moments feel like they came out of nowhere.
Hmm. I've had that happen before. If you can touch on for you specifically, what's the either the most tedious or time-consuming part of making a comic? Is it the writing itself, pacing, the book production process? Kind of where do you feel on yourself? Kind of like this is really tedious.
Marketing.
That
Yeah,
yeah, fair.
marketing, and like crowdfunding, and like I know like it's this constant tension of like you don't like receiving endless emails from me saying that I have a book out. I don't like sending those emails, man.
Fair.
If it was just a matter of like I send one email out and everyone gets on board and I off of that I make enough money that like I don't have to worry about uh how I'm paying my mortgage or getting groceries, then like I would absolutely go lazy with it. I would
Hmm.
100%. I would put out one email saying, "Hey, here it is," and you would never hear from me again. Unfortunately, like the world we live in is just very. If it's not happening right now, it's not happening. So
That's right.
you constantly have to be on the ball. You constantly have to be reminding people who already know that you have a book out, and when it's over and when it launches, and yeah. Um, that I could do without if there was an actual real like fleshed out acceptable non-scammy way to like hire someone to do that work for me, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Hmm. I feel like that's when
um
you've made it, when you got like public relations or like someone who can just take care
yeah,
of that kind of
a
things.
marketing team, like people
Yep.
whose job it is to sell the book.
Yep.
I want to write the book, that's all I want to do. But the reality of I heard this in context of music. but it's so true for comics as well. It's like, well, the good news is you can do it all yourself, and the bad news is you have to.
Yep. Well, it ties into a thing that a lot of creators have been talking about, that unfortunately, like you said, that the time spent marketing and promoting it takes away from creating and working on
Yeah,
other projects, unfortunately.
100%. And the time spent worrying about it like robs you of your creative energy to such an extent. I
Great point.
feel
Great point.
the more I'm involved in a Kickstarter, the less productive I feel
Hmm.
creatively, and it does suck. I do wish that that there was a little bit more give and take there, but it is what it is. That's
Right.
why it's important to build a big, backlog of stuff.
Yeah.
For those of you who are thinking about doing this, first of all, don't. And second of all, like, write a lot, have stuff in the
Yes.
background so that it's if someone approaches you and says, "Hey, what else you got?" It's I don't know, whatever I write next. It's like, yeah, I've got 3 more series before I even have to worry about writing anything new.
There we go. Well, this is a good question for you. Do you feel like there's any particular archetypes or mythologies that are really not present in comics at this time that maybe you're interested in pursuing?
Ooh. I mean, that's kind of how I wind up doing a lot of books is like I wind up being like, oh, this genre is either underrepresented or overrepresented, and I think like, well, what would I do with that? What would I do to make it special? What would I do
Hmm.
to do it differently and do it my way? That's how I got. That's how we wound up getting Smut. That's how we wound up getting the Cat, Skin, and the Rose. To an extent, Frankenstein the Unconquered. I think right now I don't see a lot of like as soon as I say this, I'm gonna think of like 5 examples, but like there's not a lot of like true blue like mystery and detective stuff. Like there's
No,
Dick
there really
Tracy.
isn't.
There's
Mm-mm.
like Dick Tracy, which is coming out now through Mad Cave, and that's like the one big example I can think of. And obviously, like Batman's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, but that's not what that series is about. Let's be honest.
Correct.
But like I feel like there is just like probably some ripe ground for like a true blue Sherlock Holmesy, detective series in comic book form. I feel like that's just waiting to for someone to go out and grab it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it would be really fun to almost have like a modern crime, but set in, I don't know, a really fun setting. It more like, or something even near future would be really fun too.
For sure, for sure. There's lots of different ways you can go with it. I'm starting to see more romance, which I like a lot. I
Hmm.
do think we could do better about that. Like there could be more of that. But ever since like Sunstone being like the first one that I can think of that really kick it off, and then in the last 5 years, especially, like a lot more has come out that has been geared toward that audience. So
Like Lore
um,
Olympus.
yeah, exactly. Lauren Olympus being a prime example of like that's a very slice of life, romance kind of web comic that uh, sometimes I look at in the comic shop and I just think, how did you do that?
Uh huh.
How did you get 6 volumes of this? I am so confused. And they're like this thick each,
Yeah,
like
they're
they're
all big.
omnibuses. Like I don't. How do you do? I guess you tastefully give up on backgrounds is what you do, but
That's fair.
that is the process of drawing comics is tastefully giving up on backgrounds.
That's right. Well, getting into our closing section, if you have any memorable interactions you can share with us of fans coming to you and sharing how much they appreciate your work, and or you getting to meet a creator that you were a big fan of.
Oh, I mean, there's like plenty of examples of both. This last year, I got to meet Dan Waters at
Ooh,
yeah, uh, Baltimore Comic Con, which was the same. Like I was there for the Ringo Awards, which we wound up winning for Smut. Um, but yeah, I like one of my favorite comics of all time is Coffin Bound, and
so good.
I it's such a good book. It's easily one of my favorites to this day. And like just getting to nerd out with him about that and like hear the backstory behind it and how they came to like make it was and Danny was right there as well. I got to talk to her about it.
Oh, cool.
Um yeah, no, such a nerd like just a fun nerd out experience. Um let's see. I and then on the other side, like I've had a lot of little instances of people being like, "Oh, I saw you last year and I got this book. It was really good. Do like, what else do you have?" And that always feels just absolutely incredible. I
Yes.
think to this day, my favorite like meeting, not meeting a fan so much experience, but like I was at a convention. I think it was Planet Comic Con. This is a number of years ago, and this little kid, you know, 4 or 5 years old, maybe in a like ripped muscle Flash costume, came up and I gave him I showed him my book Mechaton, and I explained the pitch to him, and I saw his eyes light up, and he ran to his dad and just shouted the pitch as loud as he could at his dad and was like, "We have to get it." And I'm like, I love this kid. This kid is great. I was like, this is what making comics is about. This is great. This is the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Funnily enough, like very similarly, and kind of combining both, at Fan Expo the year before I moved to Chicago, I was in Fan Expo Chicago, which is a show I don't generally recommend to people, because Fan Expo hates its exhibitors, but that's for a different time. Go to C2E2, don't go to Fan Expo. The It was just dead and we had nothing to do, but we noticed that, oh, Darren Warren Johnson is right over there.
Yeah.
And so at this time we didn't have a trade or anything. We just had the like some of the individual issues. And we talked to him a little bit, and we handed him a copy of Mechaton #1 and started like going over it. And I just watched him because, you know, when you're Darren Warren Johnson, people approach you with their #1s all the time.
I'm
So
sure. Yeah.
he's being very polite. And he's like, and I explained the pitch to him, which, if you don't know the pitch, it goes something like this. Mechaton is a sci-fi action comedy about a brother and sister who find a glove that turns anything it punches into a mech. And right about the time I said that, I watched him go. And just like his face lit up, and he was like, "That is the coolest thing ever." So yeah, I do love when a pitch just like hits someone the right way, and yeah, that hit Daniel Warren Johnson just exactly the right way.
No kidding. That's great. Well, at least you touched on it earlier in the conversation, but if you can dive in terms of what you can share and talk about, what else do you have in the books in terms of the rest of 26? What other projects can people hope to hear about for the rest of the year?
Totally. Well, we're relaunching the book that we started with, which is Descent into Dread, a horror anthology that was based on the various zines that we made when we were first hitting the comic scene. So we're doing that. Book originally came out through Caliber Comics, and like just so many indie comics going to the direct market for it, landed with a vigorous thud. Just absolutely no one bought it, but it's still a book that we're very proud of. And so we went back and we redid a lot of the lettering. We cleaned up some of it, created a nice digest size for it, and we're going to be putting that on Kickstarter in the next month. We want to do another enamel pin campaign. We've done 2 of those previously that have been really fun for our modern affirmations. Stuff you tell yourself because life is weird and you're doing your best. Our best sellers are Terminally EP, Tummy Ache Survivor, and Sometimes Not Murder is Good Enough.
Yes.
And then, like I said, we're doing the Bride of Frankenstein spy thriller, 60s spy thriller that I'm really excited about. And that'll be probably sometime August, September-ish. Don't hold me to that. Things are always in flux, but that's I think all I can talk about right now. It's as far as out as I'm comfortable going is 3 out, but it's an exciting time. It's also a time that we are evaluating because we don't want to put too much pressure on our audience at this time. We're very grateful that they're supporting us and that they're like coming out in such big numbers for us. At the same time, we're conscious of the fact that like gas is $5.50 a gallon. Like people are struggling. I don't want people to have to be seriously sitting there deciding between, do I buy a comic from Wells or do I, get that extra, get that thing at the grocery store that's like a special treat for me. I'm like, you shouldn't have to decide between that. So we're deciding now whether or not we want to continue at the pace that we've been going at. That said, we have more stuff in the pipeline. We will continue to make stuff, and for as long as people will continue to support us. So
Excellent. Love hearing that. Well, if you can share with us, what are your upcoming, convention appearances, store signings, additional podcast appearances, anything in that realm?
absolutely, I have a pretty stacked couple of weeks in late May, early June. I'm going to be going to Cherry Capital Comic Con in Traverse City in Michigan. That's the weekend of the 22nd of May. Weekend of the 6th of June, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh for Three Rivers Comic Con.
I've heard great things about that one.
I haven't been at all, so I haven't heard anything at all. So I'm very excited to go. And then the weekend after that, we're going to Northwest Indiana for Crusader Con. I'm sure there's something else. Capital City Comic Con is a big one that we go to in Lansing. That one's mid-July, so I'm really looking forward to that one. And I'm sure that there will be some signings and appearances smattering around in between and around all of those times. Love doing store signings, and Chicago, which is where I'm based out of, has, fun fact, the largest concentration of Eisner Award-winning comic shops in the world.
Hey,
I absolutely love our comic scene here, and yeah, I'm really privileged to be a part of it. So I try and show my face as much as possible.
perfect. Well, the great follow-up to that is, where can people find you online and follow along with all the great things you're working on?
Absolutely, Kickstarter is where we do most of our business, so you can always find something there. Just search for my name, Wells Thompson. You will find our latest project, guaranteed. I have a newsletter called Comics, Cats, and Cocktails that I publish on Substack. You search my name, search Comics, Cats, and Cocktails. It's a once monthly, and then we do little fill-ins and extra stuff for when we launch campaigns and have big news coming, or just have like a really interesting thing that we want to dive into. For just kind of daily mindless nonsense, I recommend Blue Sky at Wells Thomp. It's my name, but with the last 3 letters cut off. And then if you want to follow me on Instagram for God knows what reason, you can do so, Wells Thompson _.
Perfect. A fun question for you. What is your favorite snack or meal to fuel yourself working on a project?
Well, most of the time when I'm working on a project, it's I'm drinking coffee or tea. So yeah, I'm at one of the several local comic shops, just downing like chai lattes or cappuccinos or not cherry blossom, peach blossom tea. And then after that, when I get done, I go to the local empanada shop and get a guava and cream cheese empanada. So that would probably be my official answer.
That sounds delicious.
It's so good, man. It's so good.
Well, we'll end with a reader-centric question, since we started with one. What is next in your to-be-read pile, comics or otherwise?
What is next to my to-be-read pile? I just put down Simone and Ajax, which I picked up from Margot. I forget that last name. Margot Kapoy, at Kalamazoo Comic Con. They were there, and they were a delightful presence. She drew a nice little dinosaur for me. She drew a nice little Ajax.
Nice.
So that was my last one that I was reading. What am I reading next? Everyone Loves a Jewel Thief, I think, is the next on my to-read pile. Which is a Tim Seeley book, Aaron Campbell book that he gave to me and insisted this one is actually good. Which is very funny because I've always praised his work, but he was like, no, this one's good. You should read it.
Well, Wells, thank you for coming on the show today. It's been a blast talking to you. I really hope that we can have you on again on the show at some point. Is there any last thoughts you'd like to share with the viewers before we go?
Um, yeah, support your local comic scene if you can. That doesn't mean buy every single book every single time that you see it,
Hmm.
but it also means definitely buy a book and try and actually read it.
Hmm.
Because the thing that fuels us most is not, well, it is money. Let's be clear about that. But the thing that actually fuels us is when people come back and say, "I really loved this about your book."
Yes, the
And
engagement
like,
feedback.
yeah, something specific, not like, yeah, when it's like, "I loved this character, or this character choice, or this line," that lets us know that people are engaging with the work. That's what makes it feel actually worthwhile.
That's right. Well, everybody out there, thank you for sticking with us through 50, almost 51 minutes. We've had an audience the entire time. Wells, I'd like to thank you again for coming on the show. It's been a blast. So, everybody out there, this has been Comics for All, where comics, creativity, and community all connect. And we'll see you next time. Take care.